The story begins with a girl considered unattractive. Her mother tells her that women transform beautifully as they turn 18, but instead, she becomes even less attractive. Her classmates don't like her either, so the internet becomes her only confidant. Then, an online friend sends her a makeup tutorial video. After opening it and seeing the before and after photos, she's astonished. The next day, with her stunning makeup on, she walks into school with an unrecognizable stride, and everyone shows a look of surprise. She notices that all eyes are on her, and thinks it must be because she's become beautiful. As she confidently enters her class, even the school beauty, who once looked down on her, is stunned. Oh my goodness, she thinks, as a burst of laughter erupts from her classmates. Some even hurriedly take out their phones to snap photos non-stop, jokingly saying they'll use her picture as a talisman to ward off evil. Realizing her makeover has backfired, she once again becomes the butt of the joke among her peers. In the evening, the mother was frantically making phone calls to borrow money. After hanging up, as she got up to return to her room, she screamed in shock. It was only after Ju Jiang called out to mom that she realized it was her daughter, almost giving her mother a real scare, urging her to wash off her makeup immediately. That's when Ju Jiang realized how embarrassing her daytime experience was. She then grabbed her mother, pleading for her to transfer schools. The mother revealed that they were planning to move anyway because her father had debts and they needed to sell the house. Upon hearing she was going to change schools, Yu Jiang was so thrilled she could hardly control her excitement. Her mother, mistaking her happiness as a reaction to their financial ruin, didn't say a word before smacking her. Back in her room, Ju Jiang admired her extravagant makeup in the mirror, wondering where she went wrong. So, she decided to seek advice online, starting by taking a selfie and uploading it, hoping for feedback. Soon, a netizen responded, criticizing her eyebrows for looking like caterpillars. She quickly checked herself in the mirror and felt there might be some truth to it. At that moment, another netizen suggested, you could make your eyes look bigger. Following various pieces of advice from the online community, she finally discovered a way to enhance her beauty. It's undeniable how powerful the internet is. Next, she took out a knife and cut her piggy bank in half. The following day, she went to the mall with the money she had saved, embarking on a shopping spree. Upon returning home, she started plucking her eyebrows with a tweezer, but accidentally overdid it. Comforting herself, she thought, it's fine, I'll just draw them anyway. The next steps were applying false eyelashes, drawing eyeliner, and then applying lipstick. After a night of relentless practice, she finally put in contact lenses. Since they were moving, she didn't have much time, so she applied a facial mask in the car. Just then, the male-led Suho came out. Her father suddenly rolled down the car window, and the dried-out mask flew out, landing right on Suho's face. Witnessing this, Yu Jiang was so startled that she quickly drew back, while Suho was furious to the point of explosion. After moving to their new home, Yu Jiang continued to apply her makeup. She was about to attend a new school and understood the importance of making a good first impression. When she came downstairs, both her parents were stunned. Her sister almost reprimanded her, but swallowed her words at the last moment. The family was speechless for quite a while. Upon arriving at school, Yu Jiang entered the campus, and her classmates were shocked by her stunning appearance. It seemed as though such an incredibly beautiful girl had never been seen before. Even in the corridors, students made way for her. Feeling all eyes on her, she became a bit embarrassed, with some students even spitting out their drinks in surprise. Then, when she went to the office to report, the teachers, charmed by her sweet appearance, treated her kindly. The head teacher approached, commenting that her appearance suggested she would have excellent grades. However, upon reviewing her report card, they were flabbergasted to see single-digit scores in every subject, completely confounded. The focus then shifted to her younger brother, and the head teacher repeated the same assumptions made about Yu Jiang. Despite the academic disappointment, a teacher comforted her, saying there are many things in life more important than grades. At that moment, Suho walked in. Yu Jiang was struck by how handsome he was. Suho handed his report to the teacher, and Yu Jiang felt his voice was oddly familiar. Unbeknownst to her, he was the man who had helped her a few days earlier. However, because Yu Jiang was wearing makeup, Suho didn't recognize her as the girl he had rescued. Just as Suho was about to leave, the teacher stopped him and asked him to take Yu Jiang to their class. While walking down the corridor, a girl confessed her feelings to Suho. Suddenly, Yu Jiang bumped her face into his back during the commotion. While Suho was speaking, she tried to blow the powder off her face. But before she could, Suho accidentally knocked over the gift the girl had given him, and then walked away. Meanwhile, Yu Jiang was outside frantically touching up her makeup. Suho came over, angrily flung his shirt at her face, and then the teacher had Yu Jiang introduce herself. The classmates were thrilled to have such a beautiful student join them, except for Suho. Then, the teacher assigned her a seat. After class, the student in front of her quickly came over to chat and asked about her lipstick brand. As she was about to show her lipstick, it accidentally dropped to the floor. A girl helped her pick it up, and Yu Jiang was utterly stunned by the classmate's appearance. The girl introduced herself as Kang Sujin, saying she was the school's goddess, but now that Yu Jiang had arrived, she would be the new goddess of the school. During a long break, Yu Jiang took Suho's shirt to the restroom to wash it, but no matter how hard she tried, the stains wouldn't come out. She then remembered that the makeup was waterproof. With no other choice, she brought the shirt out, accidentally splashing water on Suho's face. Yu Jiang hurriedly apologized and offered to take the shirt to a laundry service. However, Suho suggested just throwing it away. While Yu Jiang was puzzled by his response, a classmate suggested going to buy steamed buns. Yu Jiang volunteered to go, but before finishing her sentence, she remembered she was no longer the old Yu Jiang who could be easily bullied because of her looks. Then, the three of them went to the cafeteria to eat, and they quickly became good friends. The food was very spicy, and Yu Jiang struggled with the heat. Later, they went to an arcade and played games, experiencing a joy she had never known before. Previously, due to her looks, no one wanted to play with her. At this moment, she finally found happiness and made two good friends. After returning home and removing her makeup, she transformed back into an unattractive girl with a face full of acne. Even her phone's facial recognition failed to identify her. With no other option, she had to reapply her makeup before using her phone again. Later, she went to the small library to find a horror novel and unexpectedly bumped into her classmate Suho. Since she was without makeup, Suho didn't recognize her as his classmate, Yu Jiang, which terrified her. Just as she was about to hurriedly escape, the owner insisted she finish her bowl of noodles before leaving. With no other choice, Yu Jiang had to eat quickly. Unexpectedly, Suho sat down next to her, causing her to move aside in fear of being recognized. Observing him, she found Suho quite handsome, noting his long fingers, hairy arms, and attractive face. After observing, Yu Jiang felt confident he didn't recognize her and boldly decided to test the waters. After some conversation, she was sure Suho didn't recognize her and hastily finished her noodles before running off, losing one of her shoes in the process. With no other option, she had to go back to pick it up, ending up running out with just one shoe on. Upon returning home, her brother mocked her, saying her act as a goddess would eventually be exposed, which infuriated Yu Jiang. On the other hand, Suho was puzzled because he knew the girl was the one he had saved before. He wondered why she would pretend they didn't know each other, not realizing that Yu Jiang hadn't clearly seen his face the last time. The next day, it was time to go to school again. She applied a thick layer of BB cream to her face, followed by eyeshadow. After an hour of preparation, the goddess was ready to make her appearance. As she was about to get into her sister's car, a nearby aunt asked her mother when they had acquired such a beautiful daughter, leaving her mother at a loss for words. Yu Jiang, overhearing this, felt secretly delighted. Upon arriving at school, she was still worried that Suho might recognize her and reveal her true identity. Just as she turned her head, she almost bumped into Suho again. After an awkward greeting, Suho walked away without paying much attention to her, which reassured Yu Jiang that her identity had not been compromised. After school, she went to the mall to buy makeup. Just as she was about to leave, she encountered the school beauty who used to bully her. Remembering all the grievances she suffered in school because of her looks, Yu Jiang panicked when the school beauty noticed her and quickly turned away, leaving the school beauty puzzled. Then, the school beauty walked straight up to Yu Jiang, but she did not recognize Yu Jiang's identity. Yu Jiang hurriedly ran away, unable to stop the tears of injustice from flowing. At that time, a few people riding motorcycles were chasing someone ahead. As they were about to turn a corner, one of the motorcyclists fell off his bike due to Yu Jiang's sudden appearance. He hastily threw the helmet to Yu Jiang and ran away. After a chase, Seojun was cornered in an alley. Just as the gang was about to attack him, the police arrived, and they had to retreat. After they left, Yu Jiang appeared. It turned out she had activated the alarm. She then accidentally bumped into Seo Jun, who had not fled. The timid Yu Jiang ran away. As she turned to leave, thinking of something, Yu Jiang ended up with a free helmet. That night, she came fully prepared to return the book, fearing she might encounter a classmate. The comic book store owner assured her no one was there, so she entered with relief. As she picked up a book and was about to leave, someone greeted her. She was stunned. Turning around, she exclaimed, "Oh my god, it's my classmate Lee Suho." Panicking about what to do, Suho asked why she wouldn't come down. Yu Jiang lied about looking for a book. Suho then asked her how long she would pretend not to know him, causing Yu Jiang to panic completely. She accidentally fell off the stool. The two looked at each other for a few minutes until the owner came in, snapping them back to reality. Suho pushed her aside, and the now alert Yu Jiang asked if he had recognized her here before. Suho confirmed he had, but Yu Jiang didn't realize he was referring to the time she jumped from the rooftop, while she thought he had seen through her makeup disguise at school. Their conversation was completely at cross purposes. Yu Jiang hoped he would keep her secret, thinking it was about the rooftop incident, so he agreed. However, Yu Jiang felt verbal agreements were not enough and drafted a confidentiality contract, which Suho initially refused. During their argument, they mentioned a book, which Yu Jiang had in her hand. To get the book, Suho had no choice but to sign the agreement. The next day, she cleaned the shirt that she had dirtied Suho's and prepared to return it to him, along with the novel. However, Yu Jiang was unaware that if she gave him the book, her identity would be exposed, as Suho didn't know she was the girl who had jumped from the building. At school, Yu Jiang, fulfilling her promise, prepared to return the book and gave Suho a meaningful look, leaving him completely baffled. Just then, Sujin walked over and told Suho that the teacher wanted to see him in the office. After Suho left, the curious Yu Jian asked the student in front about their relationship, and the classmate mentioned that their parents seemed to be friends. During lunch, while Yu Jiang was about to eat heartily, she overheard classmates discussing how elegantly she ate. Hearing this, she immediately put down the large piece of meat she was about to wipe her mouth with, then cut it into small pieces and ate delicately. During the lunch break, Yu Jiang, carrying the clothes and novel, found Suho again and whispered to him to follow her to the rooftop. Suho, thinking she had a crush on him, went to the rooftop. Before Suho could speak, Yu Jiang told him that she had washed his uniform and also had something else to give him. Suho took the paper bag and asked if she liked him. Now it was Yu Jiang's turn to be stunned. She explained that they had just met a few days ago, but Suho thought she had imagined that because she liked him, and then he walked away without looking back. That's when Yu Jiang realized he had not recognized her without makeup. Remembering the book from the morning and the note thanking him for keeping her secret, she hurriedly chased after him, snatched the bag back, and claimed she had taken the wrong item. When she blurted out that the bag contained sanitary pads, Suho was petrified. In the restroom, Yu Jiang suddenly wondered what secret he had been keeping for her, causing her to feel utterly distraught. During the afternoon class, a new male student joined the class, triggering a rush of memories in Yu Jiang. It turned out he was the motorcyclist from before. This is bad. This is really bad, she thought. A classmate introduced him as Lee Seo-jun, known along with Suho as the school's tough guy and most handsome boy. Wherever the handsome boy appeared, girls would fall for him with just one glance, and their hearts would flutter. The same was true for the tough guy, whose presence always attracted a group of adoring fans. However, Yu Jiang felt very afraid, and what she found even more unexpected was that Han Seo-jun was in the same class as her. He had been absent for a few days due to personal matters. Suddenly, he felt that Yu Jiang looked somewhat familiar. After class, a group of troublemakers prepared to confront Seo-jun, but as the school's tough guy, he wasn't going to run away. Just when a fight seemed imminent, Seo-jun stepped forward and scolded them. It turned out they were his childhood friends, and the whole scene was just to welcome Seo-jun back. The class resumed, and the teacher assigned a project to report on a poet. Seo-jun and Sujin were grouped, while Yu Jiang and Suho ended up in another group. When Sujin asked Seo-jun if he knew how to make a PowerPoint PPT, he mistakenly thought she said and proudly claimed, "I've been a fitting model before," leaving everyone speechless. On the other hand, Yu Jiang was having a tough time. She wanted to avoid Suho's gaze, but he ended up sitting right across from her. making her keep her head down for the entire class. After returning home, she lay on her bed in despair. Suddenly, her phone rang, and to her surprise, it was Suho calling. She asked how he got her number, and Suho vaguely mentioned he found out somehow and brought up the matter of her having something for him. Ju Jiang's gaze immediately shifted to the paper bag on the table, and they agreed to meet at a cafe in the park, leaving her puzzled about whom he was trying to call. If she gave the book to Suho, he would realize she was Ju Jiang and that she had deceived him. If she returned the clothes to him, he would discover she was the girl with acne. She felt trapped, as if no option would work, but then she thought of a plan. So, in the middle of the night, she went out wearing a helmet. When they met, Suho urged her to bring out the item, but she wasn't sure if he meant the book or the uniform. Pretending not to find it, she was relieved when Suho mentioned the comic book, clarifying he wanted the book. After handing him the book and attempting to leave, Suho invited her to have a hot drink before going. To avoid being recognized, she sat down, still wearing her helmet, raising Suho's curiosity about her comfort and the attention they were attracting. Ju Jiang, feeling indifferent under the anonymity of the helmet, found Suho's behavior odd. Feeling the risk of being discovered if she stayed longer, she lied about needing to go to the restroom. After a brief scare with a woman washing her hands, she returned to her seat, questioning Suho about how he got her number, which he attributed to the comic book store owner. To prevent Suho from uncovering the truth, she focused on drinking more water and speaking less. Eventually, she cycled home and lay in bed, resolving to keep her distance from Suho the next day. During class the next day, she returned the cleaned uniform to Suho and then scurried away like a mouse that had seen a cat. However, she ended up being stepped on by Aseo-jun. Just as Aseo-jun was about to leave, he suddenly remembered that she had taken his helmet. During gym class, while everyone was playing ball, the ball was thrown out of play. Just as Ju Jiang was about to retrieve it, Aseo-jun stepped on it, accusing her of taking his helmet. Ju Jiang, at a loss for words, picked up the ball and said she would return his helmet the next day. As she turned to go back, she tripped over her own feet and fell to the ground. That day was their classmate, Sua's birthday. Her boyfriend had laid out flowers on the ground, and the protagonist, seeing this, felt very happy and fortunate. Just as the couple was about to kiss, another classmate, holding a cake, aimed to smash it at them but missed, hitting Ju Jiang instead, covering her face in the cake. Her classmates told her to wash her face, but she knew that would reveal her bare face. She insisted that no one should touch her, grabbed her bag, and sprinted towards the restroom with the speed of a 100-meter dash. Upon arriving, she found the restroom full of people, causing her panic as her classmates looked on. At that moment, a boy appeared, took off his jacket, and draped it over her head in front of everyone. It was Suho. They made eye contact and rushed to the restroom, eventually reaching the teacher's private bathroom. After cleaning up and returning to class, Yu Jiang observed Suho's serious demeanor and wondered if he knew about her makeup-free appearance, and that's why he helped her. After class, she found her brother and told him about what had just happened. Her brother also felt that Suho must have discovered her secret, otherwise, why would he protect her? Ju Jiang was puzzled about why he would do such a thing, but her brother suggested that Suho might be trying to gain leverage over her to bully her later, which made Ju Jiang quite scared. Back in the classroom, her mind was filled with scenarios of Suho seeking revenge, and she even started having hallucinations. While walking in the corridor, she imagined Suho as a vampire out for revenge, causing her to scream and run away, leaving Suho utterly confused. Suho gave her a tiramisu as a thank you for the comic book and mentioned that a student at Sabum High School looked a lot like her. Ju Jiang coolly claimed to have a common face, while internally she was panicking. Faced with Suho's probing questions, Yu Jiang kept making excuses, but eventually, Suho saw through her, criticizing her acting skills and asking if she was Ju Jiang. Even then, Yu Jiang refused to admit it, claiming Ju Jiang was her cousin and they were relatives. A far-fetched excuse Suho was unlikely to believe. At that moment, her mother called out for Ju Jiang to come home, inadvertently confirming her identity. With her cover blown, Ju Jiang decided to confront the situation head-on, admitting she was Ju Jiang and challenging if he was accusing her of impersonating a goddess. Just then, the lights dimmed, and Ju Jiang took the opportunity to dash away. After returning home, she felt her world was crashing down. What Ju Jiang didn't expect was that Suho had already known her identity. He had seen the comic book, and the note she left inside when she returned his clothes. Meanwhile, Ju Jiang was at her lowest point until she saw her sister playing video games with a die-hard spirit, which inspired her. The next day, she put on a different makeup look. Her mother asked her to remove the makeup before leaving, but she insisted on not being provoked. At school, she confronted Lee Suho, determined not to lose this battle, especially now that he knew her bare-faced appearance. She mustered all her strength, transforming into the dark god Guna. The environment seemed to shift around her, and with the sword drawn, it symbolized no retreat, charging towards Suho with a devilish stride. At the critical moment, Suho pulled out her Achilles heel, causing her to lose all her powers and fall to the ground, kneeling before him and pleading not to reveal her makeup-free face. However, Suho questioned why he should listen to her, leading her to flatter him extensively, surprisingly winning his agreement. At that moment, she saw Suho as her guardian angel. Back in class, when Suho found the outside sunlight too glaring, Yu Jiang immediately ran to draw the curtains. During class, she received a text from Suho saying he was thirsty. She quickly stood up, lied about having a stomachache to the teacher, and rushed out, causing classmates to laugh. Within a minute, she was delivering water to Suho. Soon after, while Seo-jun was showing off, he bumped into Ju Jiang, who was holding her assignment. Seo-jun pinned her against the wall, demanding the return of his helmet. Ju Jiang, remembering the helmet issue, promised to return it the next day, but Seo-jun warned her of the consequences if she didn't. After delivering Suho's assignment to the office, she hurried back to class to report her mission accomplished, prompting an inexplicable laugh from Suho. After school, Ju Jiang rushed home to find the helmet, only to discover that her brother had sold it. She chased and scuffled with her brother until their mother returned and calmed the situation. Shortly after, Yu Jiang received a message from Suho instructing her to pick up a book from the comic book store and then hurry to the amusement park within 10 minutes. In a rush, she gave her brother a quick kiss and ran off despite her mother's attempts to stop her. When she arrived at the comic book store, she found out that a little boy had just borrowed the book she needed. She immediately pleaded with the boy to return the book. Meanwhile, Suho was waiting for her at the amusement park and growing increasingly impatient. At that moment, Ju Jiang was trying to bribe the boy with ice cream to get the book back. After receiving another urgent message from Suho, she decided to forcefully take the book, which upset the boy who refused to give it to her. With no other options, she performed a zombie dance to amuse and distract the boy. Just then, Suho arrived and witnessed the scene. Finally, Yu Jiang managed to get the book and found Suho. After a brief explanation, she hastily pushed the book into his arms and then took off running. The next day, she found Seo-jun to explain the helmet situation. After secretly slipping a note into his pocket, she told him to read it after she left, and then hurried away. His friends, thinking it was a love letter, teased Seo-jun about his undiminished charm. However, when he read the note explaining that the helmet had been sold, he was so angry that his hands trembled. When Ju Jiang returned to the classroom, Suho gestured for her to come over, and under the broad daylight, the two ended up having a rooftop lunch at school. Unexpectedly for Ju Jiang, this was a setup for a bigger plan. Suho tapped on the table, revealing his intention to have her participate in the school's spring festival celebration. Committed to fulfilling this task, Ju Jiang practiced relentlessly every day. When the selection day arrived, she accidentally drank too much water and, after a bathroom break, tried to psych herself up in the mirror. Thinking everyone had entered the audition room, she pushed open the door, placed her phone and microphone down, and began her performance. The teachers below were confused, having no clue what was happening. At that moment, Suho entered and witnessed the scene. Ju Jiang, lost in her energetic performance, didn't realize she had entered the wrong venue until the lights came on, revealing her embarrassing mistake, which led her to flee the scene. However, Suho, observing all this, showed a satisfied smile. After she returned home from school, she was scolded by her menopausal mother, who complained that instead of spending time on makeup, she could be learning more vocabulary. Soon after, her brother entered, having redeemed the helmet, but Ju Jiang was not appreciative. Then, Yu Jiang received a message from Suho asking her to deliver a comic book to him. Without hesitation, she headed to the comic store, braving the heavy rain. Along the way, she encountered a few bullies at a barbecue stand who mocked her appearance, causing her distress despite her apologies. When she arrived, limping and injured, Suho noticed the wound on her leg and questioned why she didn't use an umbrella in the rain. Mistaking his concern for a directive to buy an umbrella, Ju Jiang protested, overwhelmed by feelings of injustice and hurt from being judged on her looks. Seeing Ju Jiang in tears, Suho quickly covered her with his jacket and asked her to wait there while he went to buy medicine, witnessed by Seo-jun as he passed by. Returning to find Ju Jiang gone from the pavilion, he called out for her, only to find her sitting outside. He approached and carefully tended to her wound, unaware that Ju Jiang did not realize Suho's continuous errands were his way of getting her to notice him. Seeing this, Seo-jun rode away on his motorcycle, frustrated. The next day at lunch, when he saw Suho and Ju Jiang interacting closely, he could no longer hold back his feelings. He stormed over, slammed Suho's bowl to the ground, and sat down beside Ju Jiang, proclaiming he wanted to have lunch with her. This action provoked Suho, who stood up and pulled Seo-jun away, escalating the tension between them. Seo-jun landed a punch on Suho, knocking him down. Just as Suho was about to retaliate, a teacher arrived and stopped the fight. News of the altercation between the two popular guys over Ju Jiang quickly spread throughout the school. With the help of the student in front, the crowd was dispersed, but rumors continued to circulate. To prevent further drama, a classmate set up a blind date for her, which Suho overheard as he passed by. They agreed to meet at the cinema. Suho arrived early and watched the movie, but his attention was fixed on Ju Jiang and her date. Suddenly noticing something amiss, he moved past several obstacles to reach them, only to realize he had mistaken someone else for Ju Jiang. After the movie, the boy suggested another date, and Ju Jiang readily agreed. However, upon returning home, she received a message from the boy apologizing for dating her despite having a girlfriend, which left her disheartened. Her sister even commented that she had been dumped. Love had ended before it could even begin. It turned out that after Ju Jiang left, the deceitful boy met another girl, which Suho witnessed. Following the boy to the restroom, Suho intimidated him into sending an apologetic message to Ju Jiang. After school, Ju Jiang went to help out at her mother's shop, only to be shocked when Seo-jun and his mother also arrived. It turned out that their mothers were old friends. Seo-jun started taking a flurry of photos with Ju Jiang, which made her uneasy. Back at school, she saw Seo-jun and a group of people gathered around his phone, and she immediately feared he had shared her photos. Spotting his motorcycle keys, she impulsively grabbed them and fled. Seo-jun chased after her relentlessly but eventually caught up. Suddenly, Suho also appeared on the scene. Ju Jiang glanced at Seo-jun, then at Suho, and decided to break free from both, not wanting a repeat of their previous confrontation. She returned the keys to Seo-jun, urging both of them to leave her be. After their tutoring session, they decided to go to karaoke television to sing. Everyone was jumping and singing, except for Suho, who sat there awkwardly. Then, he noticed Ju Jiang's exposed legs and, feeling embarrassed, placed a cushion over them to cover them up. After leaving the restroom, Ju Jiang was drawn to the singing from the room next door. Through the window, she spotted Seo-jun's motorcycle and, in a bid for revenge, started kicking it furiously. Seo-jun caught her in the act and confronted her, but she denied touching it. When Seo-jun accused her of lying, she spotted Suho and, to prevent the two from fighting, hurriedly dragged Seo-jun away. They encountered a group of troublemakers, and Ju Jiang remembered that Seo-jun had been beaten by them before. In a panic, she pulled him to escape. Suho, observing the scene and fearing for Ju Jiang's safety, pursued them. After a chase, they managed to evade the thugs. However, Suho ended up confronting the group, who mistook him for Seo-jun's backup from Sabum High School. Despite being skilled in taekwondo, Suho was outnumbered and got restrained and punched by the gang. Just as he was about to receive a second blow, patrol police arrived and prevented further violence. The next day, Seo-jun boldly handed his motorcycle keys to Ju Jiang, declaring his feelings regardless of the onlooking classmates. Everyone around them started saying that Seo-jun liked him Ju Jiang, leaving her bewildered. At that moment, Suho, unable to hold back, grabbed Ju Jiang's hand, wanting to speak but unsure what to say. When lunchtime arrived, Seo-jun sat next to Ju Jiang, but she asked him to keep his distance. Seo-jun responded that he would agree to anything except distancing himself from her and then started eating Ju Jiang's favorite pork chop, which made her feel distressed. To her surprise, he clapped his hands, and the next moment, 2 large plates of pork chop were placed in front of her. Some classmates even took out their phones to capture the moment. In the evening, Yu Jiang received a call from Suho, and they agreed to meet at the basketball court. She was thrilled but shocked by her reflection in the mirror, so she applied her makeup meticulously before heading out. They spent time playing with cats, playing basketball, and walking together, quickly deepening their relationship. The next day during class, Yu Jiang witnessed someone bullying a classmate who, like her, was considered unattractive. This reminded her of her own similar past experiences. In the afternoon, the bullies continued their harassment, dousing the girl with a bucket of water. Determined to stop this negative behavior, Yu Jiang followed the girl as she ran out. The following day, Yu Jiang sought out the girl, Go Woon, who had a performance scheduled. Seeing Go Woon's self-applied makeup, which closely resembled her style, Yu Jiang decided to take matters into her own hands and do Go Woon's makeup herself. After a transformative session, Go Woon appeared on stage, stunning the audience with her beauty and earning their admiration. At that moment, Go Woon experienced a level of confidence she had never felt before, leaving even her brother amazed. After the performance, Go Woon rushed to thank Ju Jian. At that moment, Seo Jun approached with flowers, and Ju Jiang learned that the two were siblings. On the same day, Yu Jiang's mother visited the school and was infuriated by her daughter's single-digit report card, attempting to cool her anger with a fan. Accidentally, she directed the fan towards the class teacher, blowing away his eyebrows, revealing he was naturally eyebrowless. In a panic, the teacher asked if she had seen it, and Ju Jiang's mother, a professional in eyebrow tattooing, offered her a card, suggesting he shouldn't worry. Exiting the classroom, Ju Jiang's mother encountered her celebrity crush, who is also Suho's father. Starstruck, she eagerly bent down to get his autograph, embarrassing Ju Jiang, who fled the scene. Suho then confronted his father, highlighting their strained relationship. Ju Jiang's mother, excited to see her daughter's classmate was the son of her idol, rushed over, causing further embarrassment for Suho, who awkwardly left the scene. During a lab class in the afternoon, following a minor dispute, neither Ju Jiang nor Suho spoke to each other. As Ju Jiang was about to leave, she felt someone grab her, urging them to let go, only to find her clothes were hooked on something. Embarrassed, she hurried away. Returning home in the evening, while removing her socks, Yu Jiang froze, suspecting the person beside her mother was Suho. Her mother confirmed it was him, leading Ju Jiang to awkwardly dash upstairs. Just recently, Yu Jiang's mother went to the comic book store to find her daughter but encountered Suho instead. Since Suho is the son of a celebrity, she brought him home. At dinner time, the mother insisted on feeding Suho herself, while her son grabbed Suho's clothes, asking if he could borrow them. Suho generously offered to give them away, earning the brother's gratitude. Ju Jiang, annoyed, kicked towards her brother but ended up getting caught in a scuffle under the table. During the commotion, Ju Jiang ended up falling into Suho's arms. At that moment, their sister, who was drunk, returned home and accidentally unplugged the power, causing a blackout. Everyone scrambled in the dark until Ju Jiang turned on a flashlight, revealing her sister eating nonchalantly amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, Seo Jun found his house empty and decided to dance around in leopard print shorts. Suddenly realizing he wasn't alone, he nonchalantly greeted Ju Jiang and continued dancing until he found a secluded spot to collapse onto his bed in embarrassment, shouting out loud. Overhearing this, Yu Jiang commented that she hadn't seen anything. Hearing Ju Jiang's words, Seo Jun wished he could find a hole to crawl into. After she left, he hurriedly chased after her, accidentally catching her hair. Ju Jiang suddenly declared she had seen everything, to which Seo Jun nervously asked what she saw. When she mentioned the leopard print underwear, Seo Jun was infuriated. The next day at school, when Ju Jiang saw Seo Jun again, her actions deeply touched his heart, and he felt himself falling for her. Meanwhile, the thugs found photos of Seo Jun and Ju Jiang online and assumed Ju Jiang was Seo Jun's girlfriend. Seeking revenge on Seo Jun, they captured Ju Jiang and called Seo Jun, demanding he come to them. At that moment, Seo Jun was with Suho, who became extremely anxious upon hearing the news. Ju Jiang managed to video call her classmate, revealing her situation among the thugs. Sujin quickly recognized the location as the karaoke television they had visited before. Suho and Seo Jun searched the place room by room until Suho found her first. Without hesitation, he charged in and launched a fierce attack on the gang leader, unstoppable despite several thugs trying to hold him back. Soon, Seo Jun also arrived at the scene, throwing his backpack aside to join the fight. Ju Jiang's friends rushed to the scene and joined the melee, a chaotic mix of hair pulling, ear grabbing, and even celebratory moments. With Seo-jun and Suho's taekwondo skills, combined with the ferocity of their female friends, the thugs quickly lost the upper hand, ending the confrontation with a chorus of pain screams. The next day, because the karaoke television owner reported the incident to the school, everyone involved had to face the school's punishment. After class, Suho confronted the boy who had been bullying Ju Jiang and used his influence as the school's heartthrob to make him apologize. That evening, the boy reluctantly approached Ju Jiang to apologize, but she, mistaking his intentions, sprayed him with pepper spray. The boy, in a panic, clarified he was there to apologize, and after doing so, he quickly ran off, leaving Ju Jiang puzzled by his sudden apology. Meanwhile, Seo-jun scored 50 on a test, which he considered a good performance, and proudly asked Ju Jiang for her score. Finding out she scored 49, he scornfully teased her. That evening, upset over her exam results, Ju Jiang's mother threw away her makeup, causing her to break down in tears. Suho came to visit Ju Jiang, and finding the door unlocked, he entered just as she was crying and quickly retreated, hiding aside. Ju Jiang then rushed to the garbage area to retrieve her makeup. Seeing her distress, Suho took her out for noodles, where she found comfort in the simple meal with his company. Afterward, Suho escorted her home, where she accidentally stepped on an earthworm and froze in fear. Suho kindly helped her by removing her shoe, suggesting she sit down to avoid falling, leading to a misunderstanding about where she should sit, which turned into an awkward moment. As she picked up her makeup and headed home, Suho called out to her and cornered her against a wall. Ju Jiang, thinking he might kiss her, closed her eyes, only to receive a hairpin from him instead. The next day, she wore the hairpin and looked gorgeous for her tutoring class. Suho, waiting for Ju Jiang, noticed that Sujin seemed upset and followed her to find out what was wrong. He learned that she hadn't ranked first and had been scolded by her father. At that moment, Ju Jiang arrived and saw Sujin seeking comfort from Suho, an interaction she completely misunderstood, especially since Suho had mentioned he had feelings for someone. During the tutoring class, Suho asked Ju Jiang to sit beside him, but she pointed to the back, signaling she didn't want to sit with him. She left the class early and felt increasingly sad at home, reflecting on the day's events. Suddenly, her mood shifted, and she began to laugh, albeit somewhat creepily in the dead of night. She then took a plush toy, pretending it was Suho, and vented her frustrations on it. Her brother entered the room, witnessed this scene, and was so frightened that he quickly left. The next day, Seo-jun invited Ju Jiang to help select a gift for his sister. During this time, she received a call from Suho. Before they could talk much, she heard Seo-jun's voice in the background and realized Suho was interested in Sujin, prompting her to hastily end the call. The thought of her crush being with someone else was unbearable for her. As they were about to leave, a hand caught the elevator door, and the person who arrived was Suho. Without saying a word, he grabbed Ju Jiang, intending to take her away, but Seo-jun wasn't having it and grabbed her other arm. The elevator door slowly closed, and Suho's attempt to press the button failed, so he had no choice but to enter the elevator with them. Suddenly, the elevator malfunctioned, trapping all three inside, with neither Suho nor Seo-jun willing to let go of Ju Jiang's arms. Feeling claustrophobic and the elevator broken, Seo-jun quickly sought help. Suho noticed the cup in his hand, snatched it, and offered it to Ju Jiang, showing his straightforward nature. After a tense minute, the maintenance staff arrived, and Ju Jiang, filled with a surge of adrenaline, leaped out, stunning both men with her agility. After releasing her pent-up energy, she felt utterly embarrassed by her dramatic escape. The next day, the school organized a camping event where Suho suddenly noticed that Seo-jun and Ju Jiang were wearing matching outfits. On the school bus, Suho wanted Ju Jiang to sit next to him, but suddenly Sujin sat down beside him instead. Consequently, Ju Jiang had to sit in the back row, and Seo-jun ended up sitting next to her. Their classmates quickly started teasing them about being a couple. If looks could kill, Seo-jun would have been slain thousands of times over by Suho's glare. After arriving at the camping site, everyone took a group photo. Their classmates encouraged Seo-jun and Ju Jiang to take another photo in their matching outfits. The teacher saw this and reprimanded them, questioning why they chose to wear a couple of outfits for camping. Ju Jiang quickly denied any romantic involvement. After the photo was taken, the teasing continued, with classmates suggesting they must be dating because of the matching outfits, which greatly annoyed Suho. Ju Jiang then asked Seo-jun to take off his outfit, leading Seo-jun to joke that they had just started dating, and she was already asking him to undress, implying she was being too hasty. This banter led to a playful fight between them. Soo-ho became even more irritated when he saw Ju Jiang helping Seo-jun dust off his clothes, while Soo-jin looked affectionately at Soo-ho. When dinner time came, Soo-ho's gaze was still fixed on Ju Jiang. Later that night, Soo-ho took Ju Jiang aside, and they walked off together. Suddenly, a chilly wind blew, and they were unaware that the path they took was known as the point of no return. Legend had it that many years ago, a girl, unhappy with her arranged marriage, committed suicide by throwing herself into a well. Since then, it was said that anyone who approached the well would face the wrath of her ghost. The group of students, upon hearing an old man's story about the well, were skeptical, dismissing the idea of ghosts in the modern world. Despite the warnings, they decided to explore and uncover the truth for themselves. Meanwhile, Soo-ho and Ju Jiang were having a heart-to-heart conversation on a boat. When they were about to take a photo, a fly flew by, causing Ju Jiang to panic and fall into the river. After Soo-ho rescued her, her makeup was smeared, revealing her bare face. Just then, Soo-jin happened to pass by, and to prevent her classmates from seeing her without makeup, Ju Jiang pushed Soo-ho away. Soo-jin noticed Soo-ho, who quickly stepped in front of her to block her view. Meanwhile, Ju Jiang accidentally fell to the ground. Just as Soo-jin was about to check on her, Soo-ho blurted out that it was a wild boar, and before Soo-jin could react, he pulled Ju Jiang away. At this time, the group of students finally arrived at the well. The overweight student seemed to have noticed something, and they cautiously approached the well. Suddenly, Ju Jiang stood up from behind, startling them into a frenzied escape, not even stopping to pull up their falling pants. Ju Jiang peered into the well, hoping they hadn't recognized her. As she thought about heading back, she encountered Seo-jun, forcing her to return the way she came. As Seo-jun drew closer, she climbed up a tree. Seo-jun continued searching for the students below. Ju Jiang, hoping he would leave soon, accidentally caused her phone to make a noise, revealing her location. Startled, Seo-jun fainted, and Ju Jiang escaped to a secluded spot, where she sat on a bench to check her messages. It was from Soo-ho, who informed her he had returned. He then took out a box containing a ring, revealing his intention to confess his feelings to Ju Jiang, unaware of the misunderstanding that had just unfolded. The next day, Ju Jiang woke up early and meticulously applied her makeup, fearing her classmates would see her bare face. Soon after, the teacher gathered the students and announced that 5 treasures were hidden nearby, and whoever found them could keep them. The students excitedly set off on the treasure hunt. During this time, Ju Jiang approached the teacher, claiming she felt unwell. Seo-jun noticed her and went to the car to find her. After calling her name several times without a response, he touched her forehead and realized she was burning up. He hurriedly fetched water and medicine and sat beside her. After Ju Jiang took the medicine, Seo-jun removed his jacket to cover her and placed a bracelet on her wrist. Meanwhile, Soo-ho, unable to find Ju Jiang, grew anxious. Seeing Soo-ho outside, Seo-jun quickly positioned Ju Jiang's head on his shoulder to give an impression of closeness. When Soo-ho rushed over and saw them in an intimate pose and noticed the bracelet on Ju Jiang's wrist, he tried to wake her up but was blocked by Seo-jun. Unable to contain his frustration, Soo-ho demanded Seo-jun to come out, and a fight ensued. They exchanged kicks and punches, each unwilling to back down, fighting over their affection for Ju Jiang. The other students, witnessing the scene, thought they were just messing around. In the end, both were hurt but neither was willing to give up on Ju Jiang, each driven by their feelings for her. Back at school, Ju Jiang sent a photo of herself and Soo-ho, but after waiting for a while with no response, Soo-ho asked why she hadn't sent it yet. When Ju Jiang checked her phone, she was horrified to find she had accidentally sent it to a boy known for being a gossip, meaning if he saw it, the whole school would know. She hurriedly went to find him, and saw the message was still unread. She planned to retrieve his phone and delete the photo. She found the boy's phone in his pocket and sprinted towards him, seizing the phone and running towards her classroom. However, she faced a hurdle. The phone required a fingerprint to unlock. Just as she was contemplating her next move, the teacher arrived, and thankfully, the boy didn't notice his missing phone during class. Yet, Ju Jiang was anxious. After several agonizing minutes, the boy fell asleep, allowing Ju Jiang to use his finger to unlock the phone successfully. Just as she was about to delete the photo, He woke up and questioned why she had his phone. Suddenly, Seo Jun appeared and took the phone, seeing the photo of Ju Jiang and Suho, which left him stunned. Ju Jiang quickly grabbed the phone back and deleted the photo, but Seo Jun looked unhappily at Suho, sensing the tension between them. The next day when they met, Ju Jiang was fully prepared because dating the school's heartthrob brought immense pressure. She had imagined being overshadowed by all the girls in the school, so she was cautious. They chose to go on dates far from the school and pick the most secluded restaurants for dining. They even ordered a couple's meal, but ended up with only one set of utensils. Looking at the table next to them, they realized that was the nature of a couple's meal. Suho then picked up a fork to feed his girlfriend. At that moment, a waiter rushed over, witnessing the awkward scene, and explained she had accidentally brought only one set of utensils. With the meat already close to her mouth, Yu Jiang couldn't just eat it, embodying the fear of exactly what she was anxious about. Startled, Yu Jiang shivered as a classmate approached to greet her. In a panic, she urged Suho to hide under the table and hastily told her classmate she was dining alone. The classmate, sensing the situation, pretended to leave. Suddenly, there was a swift return, and Yu Jiang nearly jumped out of her skin. The boy with glasses firmly stated that they should respect others' privacy, greeted her, and after a few teasing remarks, he turned and left. On Sunday, Yu Jiang looked for a part-time job to earn tuition fees. Due to her lack of experience, she wasn't hired. Feeling dejected, she went to the restroom and discovered a weirdo changing clothes in the women's bathroom. She attacked him fiercely, only to realize afterward that the weirdo was Seo Jun. Yu Jiang asked him why he was in the women's restroom. Seo Jun noticed there were indeed no urinals around and hurriedly fled. It turned out that Seo Jun had been working as a model part-time, and that day, he was there for a photo shoot. With his looks and poses, he was impressively handsome. Ju Jianjing followed to see what was happening, and the director noticed her figure. Since the female model for the day had been cancelled, he decided to have Ju Jian fill in. Hearing that she could earn some money, Yu Jiang immediately agreed. However, due to her lack of experience and Seo Jun's reluctance to cooperate, the photographer noticed they were off their game and suggested they take a break. During the break, Yu Jiang felt very hot and started to fan herself frantically by lifting her skirt, which even Seo Jun found hard to ignore. When Yu Jiang tried to help him wipe off his sweat, Seo Jun stopped her and then suddenly pushed her onto the couch. With their eyes locked, the photographer walked in, saw the scene, and felt it was perfect, hurriedly grabbing his camera to take rapid shots, with both of them cooperating well. The scene shifted to a couple feeding pigeons. Ju Jiang's father suddenly caught the food and began eating it himself, mimicking a pigeon's packing, which scared the young couple away. This was witnessed by his future son-in-law, Suho, who was on the phone with Ju Jiang at the moment. Just as he was about to inform her about seeing her dad, Yu Jiang's father abruptly ended the call. It turns out he had left home to track down someone who had swindled his money. Suho then took him back to his place, unaware that he was actually with his daughter's boyfriend. Surprisingly, they got along well, enjoying turkey noodles, watching a soccer match, and excitedly embracing each other in celebration. This shared joy probably epitomizes the happiness among men. The next morning, Yu Jiang's father told Suho he would be heading home soon and asked him to keep it a secret. Suho agreed. During an evening date with Ju Jiang, a passing bus splashed her with water. Suho quickly shielded her, a scene that Su Jin, who harbored a crush on Suho, witnessed, making her feel resentful upon seeing their closeness. Since Ju Jiang's clothes were wet, Suho brought her to his place to change. After she changed and the takeaway arrived, Yu Jiang's father, who was supposed to have left, peeked out. He had found a bottle of fine wine while cleaning, intended to have just a sip, but ended up drinking the whole bottle and fell asleep until now. Trying to sneak away upon hearing Suho's voice, he had no choice but to hide under the table. Ju Jiang and Suho sat at the table, unaware her father was beneath it. As they ate pizza and watched a horror movie, her father, feeling tempted, stealthily took a piece of pizza to eat. Realizing the young man had brought a woman home, he felt proud until he realized the woman was his daughter, which infuriated him. Just as Suho was about to kiss Ju Jiang, her father grabbed Suho's leg, startling them both and making them think there was a ghost. Ju Jiang ran to the kitchen and, in panic, knocked her father down with a frying pan. Recognizing him, she was stunned to find out she had accidentally struck her father. Following the incident, they all went home together. Her father, trying to teach her a lesson, reminded her that there should be no unlicensed driving before marriage. Embarrassed by the events, they struck a deal. The father would keep Ju Jiang's relationship a secret from her mother, and in return, Yu Jiang would cover up her father's freeloading antics. When they arrived at school the next day, Su Jin, not wanting to lose Su Ho, confessed to Ju Jiang that she liked Su Ho. Ju Jiang was stunned by the revelation, but since she was already in a relationship with Su Ho, she decided to be honest with Su Jin about their relationship. When Su Jin heard that Ju Jiang and Su Ho were dating, she was so infuriated that she splashed juice on Ju Jiang's face, leading to a fallout between the once close friends. Then, suddenly, Su Jin shouted out loud in class, realizing it was all a dream. Yet, dreams often reflect reality. That day, Su Ho and Seo Jun went to Ju Jiang's house to make dumplings. Ju Jiang's mother continuously praised Seo Jun for his good looks and competence, while Ju Jiang's father showed extra care towards Su Ho. Ju Jiang's mother suggested that she should choose a boyfriend between the two, causing Ju Jiang to smile awkwardly. Her father expressed his support for Su Ho, and her brother quickly followed suit, but Ju Jiang's mother preferred someone like Seo Jun. Not to be outdone, Su Ho mentioned that his father had a performance coming up and offered to get her a ticket, instantly winning her over since Su Ho's father was her idol. This put her in a dilemma. Then she came up with an idea. She would support the one who made the best dumplings. Upon hearing this, both young men became even more determined, turning the peaceful dumpling-making session into a silent battle of masculinity, with both eager to win this unspoken competition. After rolling out the dough, it was time to start making dumplings. Both men demonstrated their adept skills, honed over 2 decades of bachelorhood, impressing everyone in the future in-law's household. They weren't just aiming for quality, but also for presentation, quickly producing a large batch of impressively crafted dumplings. They thought their task was done, but the real challenge was yet to come. Su Ho carved a magnificent 9-clawed golden dragon, while Seo Jun crafted an exquisite crane. Ju Jiang's parents were astounded by their craftsmanship, which elevated the simple task of making dumplings to a 5-star level experience. However, an inadvertent touch by Ju Jiang's father caused a minor disaster, leading to Seo Jun's victory, much to his smug satisfaction. During the dumpling cooking, Su Ho went to chat with Ju Jiang in her room and stumbled upon her childhood photos. This triggered memories of a little girl who used to cheer him up in the comic book store during his sad times due to his mother's issues, and he realized that girl was Ju Jiang. However, he didn't disclose this revelation but instead asked for a childhood photo of her, which she was reluctant to give due to self-consciousness about her looks. Their playful struggle for the photo led them onto the bed, and inevitably, Yu Jiang's father walked in, rebuked her for being so unrestrained at home, and reminded Su Ho to pursue a healthy and pure relationship. At dinner, Seo Jun inquired about their quarrel, and Su Ho retorted that it was none of his business. Seo Jun boldly declared he would take Ju Jiang back if he found her unhappy, a statement no man could tolerate calmly. Meanwhile, the family downstairs was examining the dumplings when they heard a commotion upstairs, followed by the 2 young men tumbling down the stairs, continuing their fight. Ju Jiang's family was shocked by the scene. The fight ceased when the combatants realized Ju Jiang's mother was observing them. They resorted to a unique family conflict resolution method, where they had to clip each other's toenails while professing their love. Emerging from this ordeal, both men were thoroughly disgusted, marking an unforgettable resolution to their clash. The next day, while waiting for the bus, Su Ho suddenly noticed that the image of his deceased friend Seyen's brother was being misused. Meanwhile, Seo Jun, who was working as a part-time model, also discovered the issue. The 3 of them used to be best friends, but misunderstandings arising from Seyen's death had turned them against each other. Now, they rushed to the record company, demanding an explanation. While crossing the street, a speeding car struck them both down. When Ju Jiang arrived at the hospital, she didn't check who was on the bed and started crying uncontrollably. Upon realizing that Su Ho entered the room, she was shocked to find she had been crying over the wrong person. When Seo Jun asked who she was, she realized the gravity of the situation. Her identity as a school idol could not be compromised by being seen without makeup. Desperately, she buried her face in Su Ho's chest. Seo Jun, still puzzled, asked Su Ho who he was holding. Su Ho lied, saying it was his cousin. Seo Jun remained suspicious, and to avoid being discovered, Yu Jiang covered her head with a cloth and quickly left the room as the conversation between the 2 men felt oddly intimate for cousins. Ju Jiang, fearing her cover would be blown, hastily made her escape. The next day, Seo Jun wanted to use the bathroom but found it extremely inconvenient due to his broken arms. When Suho entered and saw Seo Jun trembling from holding it in, he asked what was wrong. Seo Jun claimed nothing was amiss. Suho, initially indifferent and having his urge to use the bathroom, decided to leave. However, as Suho was about to exit again, Seo Jun signaled for help, but Suho was reluctant to assist and suggested calling a nurse instead. Despite their banter, Suho couldn't avoid the situation in the end. Meanwhile, Ju Jiang arrived at the hospital with her makeup perfectly done. Upon opening the door and seeing the scene, she was shocked. Both men also realized the awkwardness of the situation. Ju Jiang greeted them awkwardly while Suho hurriedly explained he was just helping Seo Jun change clothes. Ju Jiang said she would step out and wait outside. Seo Jun, noticing the intimate conversation between Ju Jiang and Suho, felt unhappy and stood up to leave. Suho, thinking Seo Jun needed to use the restroom, offered help, which left Ju Jiang astounded, realizing Seo Jun's dilemma due to his hands. Seo Jun, embarrassed, quickly excused himself from the awkward situation. Ju Jiang, worried that Suho might be bored, brought him several books from the comic book store. However, as they both bent down to pick up a book that fell, their heads tragically got stuck together due to the buttons. While struggling to free themselves, they overheard Seo Jun's close friends talking outside. Panicking about being caught in such a compromising position, Suho hastily hid Ju Jiang under his blanket. Just as he covered her up, the friends barged in, but thankfully, Seo Jun was not there. One of Suho's classmates, curious, decided to lift the blanket, terrifying Suho and nearly making Ju Jiang cry. Meanwhile, Ju Jiang's brother, after stepping out, encountered his crush Go Woon, who didn't reciprocate his feelings. In his attempt to gain her sympathy, he started to play up his woes. Just then, Seo Jun arrived, and Go Woon cheerfully greeted him as Appa, leaving Ju Jiang's brother dumbfounded, realizing Go Woon was Seo Jun's sister, not his girlfriend. Previously, he had mistaken Go Woon as Seo Jun's girlfriend and used various means to target him, even sticking his photo on a punching bag for daily beatings. Discovering Go Woon is actually his potential future sister-in-law left him in shock. Seo Jun bluntly told him to give up, stating his sister wasn't interested in him at all. Despite the blunt rejection, Ju Jiang's brother, unfazed with a thick skin, only managed to infuriate Seo Jun further. Go Woon playfully hung her underwear around his neck before leaving, causing quite a stir in the ward. People were eating and playing, leaving Ju Jiang feeling extremely awkward. When Seo Jun returned, his friends rushed to greet him, then burst into tears, jokingly mourning him, to which Seo Jun responded that he wasn't dead yet. At that moment, a classmate pulled out Seo Jun's underwear from a bag. Surprisingly, it was leopard print, and put it on his head. Seeing Suho sweating, Wan Mao offered to wipe his sweat, but Suho mentioned he could do it himself. Wan Mao then offered to wipe his feet instead, and upon lifting the blanket, was shocked to see Suho wearing pink socks, teasing him about his small and delicate feet and his preference for pink. Seo Jun, realizing what was happening, tried to defuse the situation by suggesting their friends leave. However, they insisted on staying the night for solidarity, which terrified Ju Jiang. Eventually, after much persuasion, they were convinced to leave, and Ju Jiang, seizing the opportunity, quickly emerged from her hiding spot and ran out without even bothering to put on her shoes. The scene shifts to them sitting on a bench resting after being discharged from the hospital. Suddenly, a cigarette butt is tossed at their feet. A burly man approaches, thinking he's alone, and Seo Jun braces himself to confront him. However, a group of people alight from a vehicle, prompting Seo Jun to grab Suho and run. The men chase after them relentlessly, and despite a frantic escape, Seo Jun and Suho end up falling, landing in a messy, smelly spot, much to the distaste of their pursuers who, repulsed by the stench, mock them briefly before hurrying away. Suho questions why Seo Jun couldn't have endured the situation, but Seo Jun retorts that he was the one carrying Suho. As Suho tries to get closer for support, Seo Jun, disgusted, pushes him away. Later, both of them find themselves on a farm vehicle, mocking each other's messy appearance. Back at home, Seo Jun indulges in instant noodles, savoring the flavor, and even adds rice to the leftover soup for extra satisfaction. When he asks Suho to fetch him a cup of water, Suho obediently complies. Suddenly, Seo Jun's phone rings. He checks it and shares with Suho that Sujin might have feelings for him, which could be why Ju Jing is hesitant to make their relationship public. Su-ho recalls the gift Su-jin gave him, pondering over her actions and intentions. Soon, Yu Jiang sends a message. Su-ho, not wanting Seo-jun to overhear, finds a secluded spot, strikes his best pose, and initiates a video chat. Ju Jiang inquires about his day, and Su-ho shares the day's events, causing Ju Jiang to laugh. She reminds him to eat foods like bananas, spinach, safflower seeds, cauliflower, and oranges to help his leg recover faster. Seo-jun feels a warm glow inside hearing this. They then make a heart shape with their hands, and Ju Jiang blows him a kiss, radiating happiness. Suddenly, her brother bursts in, asking her to accept something, which turns out to be a fart prank. Ju Jiang chases after him, intending to hit him, then suddenly remembers she's wearing cow print pajama pants, adding a layer of embarrassment to the situation. After wishing Su-ho goodnight, she quickly ends the call, leaving Seo-jun with a contented smile. Early the next day, Yu Jing is excited to meet her boyfriend. Upon stepping out, she finds Su-ho waiting at the door. Su-ho opens his arms, and they embrace sweetly before walking hand in hand to school. At school, Sua intentionally approaches a new transfer student because she previously attended the same school as Ju Jiang. After Ju Jiang and Su-ho part ways, Sujin calls out to Ju Jiang. Turning around, Ju Jiang is stunned not by the girl's appearance, but because she reminds her of past bullying incidents where the girl took photos instead of helping. Once considered a close friend, the girl's actions had deeply hurt Ju Jiang. Hyman, the girl, addresses Ju Jiang, while Sujin looks on smugly. Ju Jiang, however, ignores them and walks away with Sujin. Hyman remains unsure if Ju Jiang is indeed her former schoolmate. Unbeknownst to Ju Jiang, Sujin orchestrated this encounter to bring her past to her current school. That evening, Sujin contacts the former school beauty, informing her about Ju Jiang's true identity. They decide to confront Ju Jiang at her home, but are intercepted by Seo-jun. Mistaking Ju Jiang and Seo-jun for a couple, the school beauty shows him Ju Jiang's unflattering photos, expecting him to be shocked. Instead, Seo-jun defends Ju Jiang's beauty, stating she's more attractive than them, and furiously smashes the phone to the ground. Seo-jun then warns them against troubling Ju Jiang, threatening to take action if they persist. The next day, when Ju Jiang goes to school, everyone looks at her strangely. Upon returning to her class, Sua confronts her with a phone, showing her exposed past unglamorous video, leaving Ju Jiang feeling like her world is collapsing. Facing everyone's accusations, she flees in fear, with Sujin looking on triumphantly. Suddenly, several female delinquents corner Ju Jiang and drag her aside. Hyman, witnessing this, is terrified and then drags Ju Jiang to the bathroom to wipe off her makeup, intending to reveal her unadorned face. Just in time, Su-ho arrives to stop them. Unable to endure the humiliation any longer, Ju Jiang escapes again, with Su-ho chasing after her. Meanwhile, the chubby student finds Seo-jun and shows him Ju Jiang's past video, helping him realize the truth. Hearing classmates mocking his sister, Ju Jiang's younger brother can't stand it anymore and starts a fight, even though he's at a disadvantage. On the other side, Seo-jun visits Ju Jiang's former school to confront the school beauty, demanding she deletes the video. The school beauty denies her involvement and hints at who might have disclosed Ju Jiang's identity to her. Realizing something, Seo-jun heads back and directly confronts Sujin outside the classroom, questioning her integrity and demanding the video's deletion. Sujin does not deny her actions but points out the video has already spread throughout the school, suggesting deletion would be futile. Seo-jun rebukes her, emphasizing that her actions harm not just Ju Jiang but also her reputation. Teachers become aware of the situation, and when the homeroom teacher addresses the class about the incident, scolding the students for their behavior, there is a marked silence, as they reflect on the harm their amusement has caused Ju Jiang. On the other side, Yu Jiang locks herself in her room every day, refusing to eat even when her father urges her. In a bid to coax her out, her father fries bacon right outside her room, filling the space with its enticing aroma, a testament to a father's love. In school, Go-woon confronts the administrator responsible for circulating the video, questioning why such content was allowed to spread. Seo-jun, noticing his sister being bullied, steps in to intervene, but his brother rushes in first, attempting to play the hero. Unfortunately, his efforts pale in comparison to Seo-jun's commanding presence, which quiets everyone instantly, much to his brother's delight. Upon realizing that Go-woon is Seo-jun's sister, the bullies are taken aback, likely deterring any future harassment. Seo-jun then confronts the administrator, using his charm to persuade her to delete the video. Meanwhile, the homeroom teacher informs Ju Jiang's mother about the bullying video. Watching her daughter being humiliated, she struggles to grasp the reality of the situation, finally understanding why Ju Jiang insists on wearing makeup to school. In the evening, Ju Jiang confronts Su Jin. Though she wishes it weren't her, she knows that Su Jin is the only one aware of her bare face. Facing Ju Jiang, Su Jin admits her actions before walking away, leaving Ju Jiang hurt and pondering why her best friends always end up hurting her, just like Hyman did. When she returns home, her mother can no longer hold back and embraces her tightly. Her sister reveals to her about their mother's visit to the school, questioning why she didn't confide in them. Ju Jiang explained she didn't want to worry her mother. This moment epitomizes a mother's love, where, despite others' disdain, a child remains perfect in their mother's eyes. Deciding to take action, her mother takes her for cosmetic surgery. The doctor estimates the procedures could cost billions, but her mother is willing to pay any amount to transform her into a goddess. They start with basic double eyelids, then proceed to inner eye corners, nasal augmentation with silicone, and refine the nose tip using cartilage from the left ear for a sharper look. They plan to use flesh from her buttocks to enhance her chin and face for a more three-dimensional appearance. After the proposed changes, the final result mirrors how Ju Jiang looks with makeup. Her mother, recognizing this, praises her daughter's makeup skills over any plastic surgeon's expertise, and, with that, they leave the clinic. This story highlights the profound bond and unconditional support within a family, especially from a mother to her child. Back in the car, her mother decides to transfer her to a school where nobody recognizes her, so no one would know about the disdain she faces from her classmates due to her appearance. In the evening, Suho finds Ju Jiang and tells her that he likes her regardless of whether she wears makeup or not, because true beauty comes from the soul, and appearance doesn't define everything. Afterward, he walks to Ju Jiang home. He recalls a scene where classmates were cheering up Suha and decided to visit the comic book store. Opening his phone's camera, he dances a dance that expresses his affection. Ju Jiang, seeing the video, is overjoyed. The next morning, her mother prepares Ju Jiang's favorite barbecue, but when her brother calls her for breakfast, there's no response. Pushing the door open, he is stunned to find the room empty. At school, as snowflakes drift down from the sky, Ju Jiang enters wearing stylish little boots, causing her classmates to gaze in astonishment. Walking down the corridor, the students can hardly believe their eyes. Ju Jiang isn't wearing any makeup. After arriving in class, the students didn't mock Ju Jiang as they did before. At that moment, she overcame her fear and tried to maintain a smile. The classmates greeted her warmly. Suddenly, her best friend Suha ran out, and Ju Jiang hurried after her. She encountered some girls who used to bully her, reigniting her past traumas, and she hid in the bathroom in fear. The girls followed her to the bathroom, taunting her, claiming she didn't deserve Lee Suho, and filling her mind with hurtful words. Once they left, Ju Jiang emerged from the bathroom, questioning why she should fear them. Fueled by anger, she confronted the girls, demanding they take back their derogatory comments. They left, surprised by her audacity. At that moment, Ju Jiang boldly announced her relationship with Suho, stating he wasn't shallow and would love her regardless of her appearance. She warned them against bad-mouthing their relationship, or she would retaliate. The classmates applauded Ju Jiang's courage. Suho, hearing this, smiled and walked towards her. In front of everyone, he kissed her forehead and hugged her, running his fingers through her hair. This scene became the talk of the school. The campus heartthrob in love with the so-called ugly girl. Hand in hand, they returned to their class, leaving the students in awe. Suha, however, seemed inexplicably angry, while Sujin's scheme to separate them ultimately failed. After class, Sujin once again confronted Ju Jiang, accusing her of seeking sympathy for her appearance. Before she could finish, Suha stormed in, furiously confronting them and hurling objects at Sujin, expressing her deep disappointment. Suha had known all along that Sujin was the one who released the video. She followed them after Seo-jun took Sujin outside and overheard their entire conversation. She had hoped Sujin would apologize to Ju Jiang, but was let down by the conversation she overheard. Disappointed and angry, Suha ran off, with Ju Jiang quickly following her. Catching up with her on the basketball court, Ju Jiang hugged Suha, admitting her fault for not sharing her secrets and fearing the loss of their friendship. Suha was upset, questioning why Ju Jiang shared everything with Su Jin but kept her in the dark. After a heartfelt apology from Ju Jiang, the misunderstanding between them was finally resolved. They embraced each other tightly, while onlookers gazed at them, puzzled by the scene unfolding before them. After school, the two of them bought some large chicken legs on the street when they suddenly saw the school beauty bullying Hyman. Unable to tolerate it any longer, Yu Jiang decided to confront them. Her accuracy in throwing things was impeccable, infuriating the school's beauty. The girls charged forward, with Suo lacking in combat experience, getting her hair pulled but retaliating fiercely by flailing at the air, cursing as she fought. Next up was Hyman, who, although unable to overpower her opponent, ingeniously used a book as a shield. Then came the main force, Yu Jiang, who, despite appearing naive, turned out to be quite formidable, surprising even herself with her prowess. It seemed she had unlocked her hidden potential with a single punch. Ultimately, they resorted to the ultimate female fighting technique, hair pulling. The school beauty, not adhering to the rules of fair play, called for backup. Just as they were about to attack Hyman, Seo Jun's friend, Cho Rong, intervened, using his tall stature and considerable weight to intimidate them, which scared the school beauty and her group. Cho Rong told Ju Jiang and the others to leave, saying he would handle the situation. After this ordeal, the three girls developed a deep friendship, becoming inseparable best friends. Back at home, Ju Jiang was so exhausted that she lay on her bed, intending to call Su Ho but fell asleep instantly instead. On the other hand, Su Ho had a tough night, waiting from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. for Ju Jiang's call. Worried that his phone was broken, he called Tae-hoon, who was infuriated by being disturbed in the middle of the night and hung up the phone. Early the next morning, Yu Jiang hurriedly called Su Ho. Despite the sleepless night, Su Ho couldn't hide his fatigue. Then, Yu Jiang visited her mother's eyebrow tattoo shop and discovered that her mother had secretly enrolled her in a makeup course, which delighted Yu Jiang immensely. She expressed her joy with a flurry of kisses for her mother. Later, at school, Su Ho caught up with her and questioned why she hadn't answered his calls the previous night. Yu Jiang asked for some space, expressing her desire for a bit of freedom and not to be bothered over trivial matters. Su Ho, however, embraced her from behind just as Seo Jun arrived on his motorcycle. Ju Jiang happily hopped on, leaving Su Ho kneeling helplessly as they rode away. However, it turned out to be just a dream. In the evening, Seo Jun visited the taekwondo gym to hang out with Su Ho, criticizing that fighting is about feeling, not just training. They decided to spar to see who was stronger. In the first round, Su Ho quickly brought Seo Jun down with a shoulder throw. In the second round, Seo Jun grabbed Su Ho's waist and tackled him to the ground, but Su Ho escaped using his legs to lock Seo Jun's neck. In the third round, Seo Jun managed to pin Su Ho down, but Su Ho again used his legs to lock Seo Jun's neck, resulting in Seo Jun's defeat after 3 seconds. Exhausted, the two lay on the ground gasping for air. As the loser, Seo Jun had to follow Su Ho's command, which was to sing on the street. His beautiful singing instantly attracted a crowd, and people started recording videos to post online. Watching his performance, Su Ho couldn't help but smile proudly. Later, while eating pizza together, Su Ho asked what Seo Jun would have wanted him to do if he had won. Seo Jun revealed his desire to confess his feelings to Ju Jiang and hear her rejection in person so he could move on. Hearing this, Su Ho fell silent. The next day, Su Ho and Ju Jiang went to the mall together. Ju Jiang's phone suddenly rang, and it was Seo Jun calling. Ju Jiang sensed that Seo Jun was about to confess his feelings to her. Soon, Ju Jiang and Seo Jun met, and Seo Jun revealed he had developed feelings for a girl who already had a boyfriend. Ju Jiang encouraged him to win her over, which made Seo Jun laugh. Suddenly, Ju Jiang guessed if it was about Suo and warned him not to steal someone's love, which left Seo Jun speechless yet deeply in love with her innocence. The following day, Yu Jiang styled her hair beautifully, and she went to the zoo with Su Ho. Afterward, they visited a cafe where they drew portraits of each other, Su Ho's drawing of Ju Jiang and her drawing of Su Ho. Then, they went to the seaside, looking blissfully happy, unaware of the separate challenges waiting for them. On the other side, Seo Jun went to Su Ho's house, knocking on the door frantically and calling him, but no one answered. It seemed like there was an emergency. Finally, he found Su Ho in the evening. It turned out that Su Ho's father in the United States had fainted due to a cerebral hemorrhage and was undergoing surgery. Learning this, Su Ho felt immensely heavy-hearted. With no other choice, he had to go to the United States to care for his father. Facing the separation, both were deeply reluctant to part ways, but Suho eventually embarked on his journey to the United States. As Ju Jiang watched Suho's departing figure, she tried hard to hold back her tears until he was out of sight. Then she broke down crying. Seo-jun, not knowing what to say, silently stayed by her side. Meanwhile, Suho on the plane was also crying. Time flew by, and 2 years passed. Ju Jiang got drunk at a class reunion, and the person who came to pick her up was Seo-jun. It turned out that Suho had not returned in those 2 years. Initially, when he arrived in the United States, the doctor said his father could be discharged the next day, and he packed up to return home. However, his father's condition worsened that day, and Suho stayed in the United States. During this time, he called Ju Jiang, hoping they could break up, as he didn't want her to keep waiting for him. Ju Jiang, heartbroken, refused his request and hung up the phone directly. Seo-jun took Ju Jiang out of the restaurant, intending to carry her home. But she ran to a seafood stall and grabbed an octopus, claiming she wanted to take it to the sea. Seo-jun had no choice but to follow her and clean up the mess. Later, he took her to a square where Ju Jiang insisted on introducing him to a girlfriend, which infuriated Seo-jun. He warned her not to keep setting him up with other women. The two then shared a moment, and Seo-jun embraced Ju Jiang. The next day, when Ju Jiang woke up and remembered the previous night's events, she went to the living room for water, only to find her brother coming out from the side, revealing that Seo-jun had slept over at their house. Her mother mentioned that since Seo-jun had carried her back in the middle of the night, it would be improper to send him back so late. Pretending not to remember anything from the night before, Ju Jiang claimed she had no memory after leaving the restaurant. After breakfast, Ju Jiang walked Seo-jun to the door and was about to return inside when he stopped her and asked if she truly didn't remember anything from the previous night. Ju Jiang hastily replied she didn't remember, to which Seo-jun revealed that they had kissed. Shocked, Ju Jiang denied it, saying if she couldn't remember, it didn't happen. It turns out Seo-jun hadn't kissed her, as he didn't want to betray his best friend, Suho, by taking advantage of the situation. Back in her room, Ju Jiang finally realized that Seo-jun had feelings for her, leaving her in disbelief and astonishment. That evening, Seo-jun invited Ju Jiang to dinner, planning to formally confess his feelings to her. However, he didn't pressure Ju Jiang for an immediate response. Instead, he asked if she could go on 3 dates with him as a way to honor his confession. After returning home, Ju Jiang took out a gift she had received from Suho years ago, realizing she still hadn't fully let go of him. There's a Korean legend that during the first snowfall, one will meet the person they wish to see. On this day, Ju Jiang, seeing her boyfriend who disappeared 3 years ago, couldn't believe her eyes. Suho approached her, and as he touched her face, Ju Jiang forcefully removed his hand, stating they had already broken up. Despite Suho's repeated expressions of missing her, Ju Jiang declared she didn't miss him and ran away heartbroken. Suho quickly followed her, and when Ju Jiang suddenly felt severe stomach pain, Suho didn't hesitate to carry her to the hospital. The doctor informed her that she was just constipated, which left her bewildered. The doctor explained that it was all about poop and farts, and she would be fine once it was all out, causing her immense embarrassment. She fled with her clothes in hand. When she returned home, and Suho called her, she immediately hung up. Upon learning of Suho's return, Seo-jun went to find him. Suho shared his encounter with Ju Jiang, and Seo-jun, aware of the whole situation, understood Ju Jiang's feelings. He knew from the dinner they had together, where Ju Jiang cried like a 1-year-old, that she had never forgotten Suho. The next day, as Ju Jiang was preparing to go to work, she found Suho waiting for her at the door, just like he used to when they were going to school. Pretending it was a coincidence, Suho greeted her, but Ju Jiang ignored him and walked away. However, Suho continued to follow her, which led Ju Jiang to get annoyed, run away, and hail a taxi to her part-time job. To her surprise, she found Suho already there when she arrived. During her shift, Suho asked Ju Jiang to serve him tea and water. When Ju Jiang hesitated, her boss scolded her and told her to attend to Suho. After her hairdo was finished, Ju Jiang still hadn't finished her shift, so Suho requested to have his hair returned to its original style. Finally, when her shift ended and Ju Jiang changed her clothes to head home, she turned around only to find Suho had disappeared. She muttered a few complaints about his sudden absence. Upon exiting, she found Seo-jun waiting at the door, reminding her of their 3-date agreement and suggesting they start right then. As they left, Suho returned with food he had bought for Ju Jiang. It turned out he had noticed she was too busy to eat and had left temporarily to get her some food. On the other hand, Seo-jun took Ju Jiang to an ice skating rink and then to help him choose earrings. Surprisingly, Seo-jun ended up having Ju Jiang pay for them. Afterward, they went to have a meal together. Unable to find Ju Jiang, Suho went to the comic book store. At the same time, Seo-jun was sending Ju Jiang home, passing by the comic store. Just as they were parting, Seo-jun embraced Ju Jiang. It was at this moment that Suho stepped out of the comic store and witnessed the scene. Seo-jun noticed Suho but did not let go of Ju Jiang immediately. After a moment, Ju Jiang regained her composure, but before she could explain, Seo-jun interjected, mentioning they still had 2 more dates, and then he walked away. When Seo-jun reached the intersection, Suho appeared and confronted him. It said that there's nothing a drink can't solve between men. Seo-jun revealed he was dating Ju Jiang, which Suho found hard to believe. Afterward, the 2 men sat down, drinking silently, letting the liquor express the unspoken words between them. The next day, Ju Jiang went to where Seo-jun was working. Seeing Ju Jiang's message, Seo-jun was not particularly happy. He knew this day would eventually come. Unaware, Ju Jiang didn't know this was the last time Seo-jun would embrace her. He had decided to let go of Ju Jiang. Suddenly, Seo-jun informed her that Suho was leaving for America that night, and there was still time to catch him if she hurried. Ju Jiang was stunned. Seeing her indecisive, Seo-jun pushed her towards the door. At that moment, Seo-jun felt a deep pain inside, as he pushed away the person he loved and then slowly distanced himself from her. Ju Jiang, looking at Seo-jun's receding, understood his intentions. Once out of sight, Seo-jun attempted to climb to the rooftop terrace, but broke down in tears halfway there. He reminisced about the 3 years he spent with Ju Jiang. He was there for her birthday. He was the one who took her to her college entrance exam, and he was the one who accompanied her for her graduation photos. Every significant moment in Ju Jiang's life was shared with Seo-jun. Yet, 3 years of companionship couldn't outweigh the presence of Lee Suho. His tears flowed, filled with profound sadness and reluctance. On the other side, Ju Jiang was frantically running towards Suho. She had already lost Suho for 3 years and didn't want to miss him again. At that moment, Suho was packing his clothes. Ju Jiang, having arrived, banged on the door incessantly, but there was no response. She became so anxious that she started crying, accusing him of leaving without saying goodbye. Just then, the door opened. Ju Jiang embraced him tightly, repeatedly pleading with him not to leave. She then saw Suho's luggage, which made her cry even harder. Suho assured her that he wasn't going anywhere. Ju Jiang thought he was lying, pointing out that his luggage was all packed. Suho explained he was just organizing his clothes. She finally understood that Seo-jun had told her about Suho's departure to facilitate their reunion. Realizing this, Ju Jiang embarrassingly ran out, and Suho quickly followed, catching her and then driving her home. In the car, they talked a lot, rekindling their previous relationship and even shared a shy moment. The next day, Ju Jiang found Seo-jun again to apologize, but Seo-jun told her that he confessed his feelings for her sake as well, explaining that only after being firmly rejected could he focus on other things. Ju Jiang knew he was pretending to be indifferent, but love is always selfish and cannot be shared. That day, while working part-time, Ju Jiang was bullied, and unexpectedly, Sujin returned, kicking her way in. Ju Jiang, seeing her, didn't know what to say. Later, they went to a bookstore where Sujin, who had dropped out of school because of the video scandal, had gone abroad with her mother to her aunt's place, and her parents had divorced. She sincerely apologized to Ju Jiang for her past actions, expressing regret. Ju Jiang didn't blame her and had always considered her as her best friend. They reconciled at that moment. Due to her naive nature, Ju Jiang often makes mistakes, and this time, she is scolded by her boss again. That day, Ju Jiang invited Suho for dinner. Upon his entrance, all the girls around were smitten by him. Ju Jiang, noticing this, immediately asked him with a hairpin why he was late, confusing Suho. After understanding the situation, Suho wiped the corner of her mouth, eliciting envy from the onlookers. Soon, it was Seo-jun's debut day, but he couldn't seem to be happy about it. With a look of disdain, he was utterly speechless towards her. In the evening, Yu Jiang asked Sua to accompany her to pick out clothes for her sister's upcoming wedding. Suddenly, Sua saw a post from her boyfriend's friend circle showing he was at a bar, although he lied to her saying he was at a food stall, which infuriated her. She called him and discovered that Suho was also there, which made them both extremely angry. They decided to confront them at the bar. Upon arrival, Sua grabbed her boyfriend, questioning why he went to such a place, suspecting that her boyfriend and Suho were there to flirt with other women. Her boyfriend explained that they went to a steam room, and by the time they entered, Suho was already drunk. Yu Jiang then took Suho home. After finally getting him onto the bed, a drunken Suho asked who she was and why she was in his house. Yu Jiang, amused, teased him by suggesting they start dating now that he and his girlfriend had broken up. Suho, still inebriated, declared he was Yu Jiang's man, which made her laugh happily. As she was about to leave, Suho grabbed her, and she ended up contentedly lying in his arms. Soon, both of them fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Yu Jiang suddenly woke up and was startled to find a man lying beside her. In a panic, she fell off the bed. Realizing it was already 3 a.m., she hurried to leave but was stopped by Suho, who asked her not to go. And then, well, you know what happened next. The next morning, Suho got up early to prepare breakfast. Yu Jiang commented that she couldn't even cook noodles, to which Suho replied that it looked like he'd be cooking for a lifetime. Yu Jiang smiled happily. A week later, Yu Jiang's sister's wedding day arrived. Surprisingly, the groom was Yu Jiang's class teacher. At the hall, Yu Jiang found Suho, who had changed his hairstyle to a more mature and steady look. Classmates and Su Jin, who had reconciled with Sua after many years, attended the wedding. They shared stories from the past. During the wedding, the sister struggled to try on a ring, which then fell under a table. As she attempted to retrieve it, she got her head stuck. While the groom entertained the guests, Yu Jiang's parents tried to help her, but to no avail. Just in time for the auspicious moment, the sister had to walk in with a necklace. The table stuck to her head. Everyone applauded and celebrated their happiness regardless of the situation. The principal acted as the officiant, and after some remarks, Yu Jiang's sister proudly declared that Han Junwoo was her man, earning applause from everyone. Later, classmates and even the sister herself performed on stage. When Yu Jiang, unable to watch, slipped and fell, she simply got up and continued to enjoy the party. The principal joined in the fun, and the wedding ended on a high note, amidst lively celebrations. A month later, as Seojun's debut day was finally approaching, although there were many makeup artists available, he specifically requested Yu Jiang to do his makeup. As Seojun told her to apply makeup casually because he believed his lips were the most attractive feature. Watching Yu Jiang work, as Seojun wished time could stand still, as Yu Jiang always held a special place in his heart. On the night of his debut, Yu Jiang and Suho attended the performance. Amidst thunderous applause, the show began. The song Seojun performed was written for him by Suho. As they watched Seojun on stage, reminiscing about the times they shared with Yang, tears uncontrollably welled up in their eyes. And so, the story concludes here. Today, we'll stop here. Please like, comment, and follow our movie channel for daily entertainment. We'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.